Good evening and welcome to OTF Connects. We are here being filmmakers tonight and we're excited to be enjoying this presentation. I am going to introduce Syria Skirhan, who is the coordinator of OTF Connects. So she works out of the Toronto office and also out of her home office, coordinating these wonderful opportunities for teachers. So Syria, would you like to take over and introduce Alessandra and Jordana?
Will do. Thank you very much, Susan. And hello, everyone, and welcome to OTF Connect. I'm so glad that you were able to join us tonight, giving up your own time when it's so miserable outside. I guess it's nice and warm in your home, so welcome. We have a small group here tonight, but it's still great to see representation from across the province and new people joining us. So fabulous, and thank you. It's my pleasure to welcome Jordana Ahrens and Alessandra Canido, who will be facilitating tonight's webinar, Engaging Students Through Environmental Filmmaking. Jordana and Alessandra are with the Planet in Focus. It's an environmental arts organization that has year-round programming to raise awareness to a wide range of environmental issues. Planet in Focus is close to my heart. OTF partnered with Planet in Focus from 2008 to 2011 while I was working full-time for OTF. And we worked together to support teachers to run environmental film festivals across the province. So it was such a powerful way really to engage students and to raise environmental awareness. I'm delighted that Jordana and Alessandra are with us tonight and are here to share strategies to engage students through environmental filmmaking. So I'll stop talking and I'll pass the mic over to you, Jordana and Alessandra. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone. We're talking to you live. This is our first webinar, so we're really excited. We're live from downtown Toronto. I'm Alessandra. I'm the festival manager and year-round programs manager here at Planet in Focus.
And I'm Jordana Ahrens. I'm the general manager. We're a small operation, so we work pretty closely together on all our projects. So first off,
thank you all for joining us, and especially a huge thank you to Syria and Susan for troubleshooting and making this all happen. We're really excited to work with OTF once again.
Yes, and thank you all for being here. Mm-hmm. I thought we'd just start off with just a quick introduction to Planet in Focus for anybody who may not be so familiar with us. We're in our 17th year, and Planet in Focus is an environmental media arts organization, and we have year-round programming. Our overall mandate is to produce cultural events that showcase engaging and artistic films that question, explore, and tell stories about the world in which we live. We use film as a catalyst for public awareness, discussion, and engagement on a broad range of environmental issues. And our goal is to enlighten, engage, and entertain audiences of all backgrounds through film. And our old little saying was saving the planet one film at a time. In terms of our programming, our major centerpiece program for Planet in Focus is our International Film Festival that takes place in Toronto in the fall, and we bring the best films and the best filmmakers in environmental works from around the world. And it's quite an event, but we've always been very dedicated to working with youth and working with students. That's something we really enjoy and an important part of what we do. This year, we've had different programs over the years in terms of bringing films to children and filmmaking to children. This year we're working on the Eco Film Lab, and that's a multi-year program for us that we're continuing on with. And the Eco Film Lab is really providing the teachers with the skills, the media literacy skills, to take that back to the students to create films in the classroom. Another thing that we do is we do the Green School Tour, where we send some of the environmental films that we've chosen and are age appropriate to elementary students across the province in certain regions where we get funding. And
and high schools as
and
well.
High schools as
yeah,
well.
and actually, if you want to take a closer look at our website, the Green School Tours is fully funded by the TD Friends of the Environment Foundation for, I think, 8 regions in Ontario. So definitely take a look at that if having an in-school film festival is of interest to you.
And we can send you films. And then in Toronto, we also will have special screenings for elementary and for high schools during our festival, which is fantastic. And you can kind of see, we always bring out youth speakers. It's a lot of fun. So on to the workshop. In terms of, we feel that art, as you see from this quote, it provides a natural vehicle through which students can explore and express themselves and discover and interpret the world. We don't see art as separate from any other parts of learning, especially in the subject matter, science and art are really coming hand in hand. Alessandra was going to talk about how some of the focus has changed over the years with the Bloom's taxonomy.
Yeah, so you guys all recognize this chart, I'm sure. Bloom's taxonomy is a classification of different objectives that teachers set for students, and as most of you know, I'm sure, in 2011, creating and creativity was actually set to the top of the chart, which is something that we're really excited to see. And in all of these workshops, the EcoFilm Lab, we've done it now across Canada. Last year we were from Vancouver to Halifax, and also in last fall I was sent to the Dominican Republic where we did our first international workshop. So this, using creativity in the classroom and incorporating that into the curriculum, is something that is happening all over the world. We're really excited about it. The students are really excited about it, and it really can be incorporated, especially filmmaking and any type of arts, can be incorporated in any subject matter. We have reviews from science teachers to social studies, and we're thrilled to see how you and your students can incorporate filmmaking in your curriculum.
Yeah, and having these media literacy skills, you can use it across curriculum. Great training for life in general, but the thing we find is exciting with kids is that they're really exercising their voice for change, and we're supporting the empowerment of the students, where they can actually feel that they can be part of a solution. And last night I was actually at WaterDocs co-presenting a film.
Just referring to Andrea's question in the chat room.
Right.
So we are co-presenting partners with WaterDocs. Oh, hi, Andrew. We actually did have a workshop in Quebec last year.
Yeah. We do accept films in French.
We definitely accept films in French. But referring back to WaterDocs, Andrew's question, we are partnered with them. We co-present with a number of other film festivals across Canada and actually around the world through the Green Film Network. So we always like to support our friends who are promoting other environmental documentaries, for sure.
I know they're doing some programs where they're doing some ecological work in the classroom, and then films are coming out of that. We did have somebody who wants to submit a film to us that did a film with them, and they're just going to edit it down a little bit.
Yes, that's true. But they are technically separate programs. But we do have teachers who have worked with WaterDocs also submit to our EcoFilm Lab and Student Film Festival. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the EcoFilm Lab itself. Yeah,
and so basically how it plays out is, we provide skills for teachers, and then the teachers lead the students in making films. So creating a film and then finding opportunities to screen the films. There's a lot of opportunities that we're creating for students. In Toronto, we have a film festival, a red carpet gala that we do every year. That's a lot of fun. We're going to hold that in New York region as well this year. Ottawa, we're going to be holding a screening in September of the Ottawa films at the One World Film Festival. We do want to create opportunities for the entire province, so we're going to consider all the films for potentially screening in our big international festival, which is a lot of fun, and finding online opportunities. And also really encouraging community screenings that the students and the teachers can create themselves inside the school or in a community center, involving the parents, the families, the community. And so we'll go through a bit of a filmmaking workshop with everybody, but we also want to say that we have resources available online on our website. And is there a screen for that one, the resources? Okay. Anyway, we do have lots.
There is a little bit later, yeah.
Oh, a little bit later, okay.
We'll get to that.
So we have lots of resources on our website. I know sometimes the idea of making a film can seem daunting. And it can be a complicated matter, but always the rule of thumb is KISS. Keep it simple, silly. You can make a most powerful piece in the most simple way, and the children are so creative. So we're going to start off with a screening review of some of the. We're jumping ahead. We haven't got the.
So
okay.
Yeah. So here are some of the dates. Sorry, the formatting is a little bit different when we imported it, but for Toronto schools, if you do want to submit to the Student Film Festival, please do. The deadline, you still have a couple of months for the deadline, or a couple of months. York, you have a little bit more time, and Ottawa, as Jordana mentioned, we're going to be organizing student films at the One World Film Festival in Ottawa. For the rest of Ontario, we do encourage you to submit. Definitely, Nadine, submit to us. As Jordana mentioned, we're going to try to sprinkle in some of the student films at our annual International Film Festival in Toronto. And we're also going to share those online. We have a YouTube channel, and we put, if you choose to, we can include you in our playlist for the 2016 Eco Film Lab program. So we definitely want to see, might be project for next year. Yeah, definitely. And this is perfectly fine if you want to keep us in mind, or let us know if you need any other support materials in that time. We're willing to help you in the next year for sure. But as Jordana also mentioned, it doesn't need to be a detailed film. It doesn't need to be a long film. In fact, we encourage them to be under 4 minutes. If you want to do a 30-second PSA, that's even better. So yeah. Yeah, it's always fun to experiment even with something simple. Exactly.
One of our more powerful films was really just should I talk about that film? Was a boy. It was really just some pictures, and it was a voiceover of a boy who had called Tim Hortons to see if their cups were recyclable. And it was such a simple little piece, such a simple little concept, and easy to do, but it ended up being really powerful because we found out that, of course, those cups were not recyclable. So it was really strong.
It can be really simple. It's about the content. It's not always about the fantastic quality, although that does matter sometimes. Okay, great. So yeah, so support materials. So here's a list of some, not all, we do have more than this, support materials that we do share out for free on our website and our YouTube channel. We definitely encourage you to take a look at these, because in an hour and a half, we cannot make Oscar-winning filmmakers of you all. So take a look. They're not intimidating. Here, there's a great playlist of YouTube how-to films that I've also put together on our channel, which is youtube.com/planetinfocus. So
we have a great document that was created in combination with Eco Schools, and it really goes through the entire process of filmmaking and how to incorporate it into class programs and class plans. So that's very handy as well. We can send that list out to everybody who's participated, but you can go to planetinfocus.org, and then you would go to our education, Eco Film Lab, and they're all there to download. And you can always call us or email us anytime as well here at Planet in Focus.
I'll just quick interrupt if you don't mind, and just let people know that this whole thing, as you heard, is being recorded, but also on the OTF website there will be a resource page for this particular webinar, and all of the links that are being shared in the chat will be part of that, as well as anything else that comes up throughout the session. And you'll get a link to that in an email tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan. Okay, so moving
We want to just screen a few clips for you and just talk about some of the things we thought worked in past films and some of the things that maybe would be improved. We are going to...
Yeah, so I think Susan has those links, but if not, I can jump in. for the first one, maybe I'll just grab it. Susan. Maybe I'll just add it in. Sorry guys, bear with me. So if you all want to click on this first YouTube link, we're going to take a look at some clips from past videos so you get an idea of what we're looking for and some do's and don'ts. So here's the first clip. I'll give you guys a second to take a look at that. So whenever you've returned or whenever you're ready, if you can just give us a little approval thumbs up or a smiley face and let us know that you're back.
I might suggest that we use the polling tool. So use the green check mark when you're through, just because the green check mark will stay there, and the happy face icons, they disappear after a couple seconds. So they're starting to show up.
Okay, I'm seeing some check marks and things happening over here. Okay, that's great. Okay, great. So let's keep it moving. So this particular film was from New Brunswick, Sunny Corner, New Brunswick. It's called Overfishing. And as you saw, it's a really great example of a claymation film. One note that we had was, although it incorporated great sound effects, it could have really used a music bed. It felt a little bit slow for a minute-long film, and a music bed would have really just pushed that along. So that's just one example. I'm going to put the next link in. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, some of the schools are already working with certain techniques anyway, so people usually work with some of the subjects that they're already studying or some of the techniques they're working with.
So here's the second clip. This is a music video piece. We love this piece. Once the song starts up, if you guys want to come back, that would be great. And give me a check mark again when you're back.
How about you? It's Nikolai. How about you? It's Nikolai. How about you? It's Nikolai. Seriously, what does Nikolai mean? But to me, we need to protect your planet. Oh yeah, I was in a club like that at school.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there they are. They're coming up.
Oh, no, they're all in. Okay. Oh, okay, that's fine. Cool.
Jordana and Alessandra, we can hear you talking, so you might want to turn your mic off during the...
Okay.
And I apologize for the links. I wondered why you kept asking me for the links. I was putting them in the wrong chat. There's 2 or 3 chat rooms that are open, and I was checking them out when you asked for the links, and so I put them in the wrong one. I apologize. Anyway,
no problem. Okay, thanks for bearing with us, guys. As I mentioned before, this is our first webinar, so we're just getting used to it. But okay, so we clicked on Eco-Life. If you guys want to come on back and use the polling tool to give us a yes when you're back in the room, that would be great. Thank you. Awesome. So most of us are back. So Ego Life is a really great film. One of the notes that we had on this piece was that it was a bit too long. Now you see why we have a limit of 4 minutes. And also the scenes kind of dragged on. So what's an Ego Life? Not all of the actors need to have lines in one scene. So just keep that, these are things to keep in mind. Something else was the copyright. So we're going to get into that a little bit later, but music is copywritten, and we try to stay away from that when working with classes or ego clubs. Because we end up screening these at venues, and because they go up online, we don't want to infringe on any copyright. So there are ways you can create your own music, or you can use royalty-free music, and those are your safest bets. So Jenna, did you have anything to add?
No, it was a really fun idea, but we are going to try and stay away from pieces that have copyright issues. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it was a fun idea, and the kids had a lot of fun doing that film.
I'm not sure. I think someone's mic might be on because I'm hearing some whispering. To take your microphone off, you can just press talk again, and that'll undo it. Okay, great. So clip number 3, get back to the tap. This is another great one. We have this school in particular. I'll let you guys watch it. All right, everyone, if you want to come on back to the chat room and give me a yes when you're back in, that would be wonderful. Awesome, thanks guys. So this is a really great example of how to incorporate animation with live action. So I know you probably haven't gotten past 30 seconds, but if you have the time to go back now, to go back later and take a closer look, they really did incorporate a bit of drama with some action, a bit of documentary and B-roll, which we'll get into later, and also some special effects. So this is a really great piece on how to incorporate stop motion, animation, live action. Yeah, and also at the beginning when you saw those letters moving around, that's a really great way to do the credits at the end of a film. We see credits done in a lot of different techniques, and that's always a fun way to, if you have a large class and you're always looking for different roles, animation coordinator is always a really fun role for a smaller group. Okay, great. And the final clip is Hear the Gears. So let's go ahead and click on that one. Okay, great. So if you guys want to come on back to the room, and again, give me a little check mark on your back, that would be great.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if
awesome
little clips.
So Hear the Gears, it was done by a grade A class. You can definitely tell the difference of the quality. I love that they used a walking host, so there weren't it wasn't such a static, what we call just a talking headshot. However, when it gets onto the bike shop owner, the whole rest of the film, the rest of the 4 minutes is just her sitting on the couch. And she has a really cute dog next to her, but watching someone just sit on a couch for 4 minutes and talk to a screen is not the best way to get all the information out. They really could have incorporated other scenes, a bit of animation, some facts, maybe some statistics. So,
yeah, or even just what we would call B-roll. You could have her talking, And then just something to cut to, like maybe cut to the wheel of a bike or somebody riding a bike. You know, you can combine those two things.
Yeah, so the whole purpose of this exercise is just to get you thinking of different ways to really elevate the quality, simple ways to elevate the quality.
And to tell a story, that's what we're going to get into next. There are 4 basic stages of filmmaking. The first one is development, the second one is pre-production, the third one is production, and the fourth one is post-production. We're going to go through all 4 stages in sort of briefly, but the first thing you want to do is you want to get your story idea. You want to develop your project. So probably the first thing you want to do with your students is brainstorm with your students. It can be a really fun process about what stories excite them, what stories interest them. You know, they can call it out. You can write them on the board. You can create games around brainstorming the ideas that are engaging, and then which ones might make a good film. Sometimes they're also based around projects you're doing in the classroom. A lot of people may have a project where they're hatching eggs or cleaning up the schoolyard, or there's some sort of project that you're working on, and they think, oh, wouldn't it be cool to document this? So it really ties in with something that you're already doing. Once you have an idea, you want to research it. You can, you know, the internet is a great resource, and so you want to research the issues so you have an understanding about that, and then you need to figure out what kind of film you want to make. You know, you're going to choose a genre or a style. A lot of times with students, they actually create hybrids. They're so creative. I would just honestly really try and take the lead from the students, because they'll be very creative and they're just natural storytellers. But you know, you could do a documentary style film, which could be there's 2 kind of different styles. There's essay or character driven. Character driven might be you follow a person's personal story. I think more often though in schools it might be a bit more interviewing and kind of exploring a topic all round. You could do something scripted. You could have a drama, a comedy, a musical. You could do stop motion animation. And again, often we're finding just, you know, combinations of everything in that. You do want to have some structure though. So you would either be writing a script or creating some sort of storyline for a documentary. Even though it's not scripted, you still kind of create how you're going to form your argument. In terms of a script, you know, it's basic drama with a 3-act structure always. That can be very simple. You just need a beginning, a middle, and the end. You know, say if it's a 3-act structure, Act 1 could be the setup. Tom wants to play in the yard. But then there's a problem. There's just too much garbage in the yard, so he can't play in the yard. So then Act 2 is he tries to clean it up. But then there's a problem. People keep throwing garbage down, so he can't get anywhere with it. So maybe Act 3, he proposes a solution, that they get a whole school campaign, and they're all going to clean up the garbage together, and then the conclusion is they can all play and have fun in the yard. So it's sort of a simple 3-act structure.
And we found actually brainstorming with the students is really helpful. They always come up with exciting stories to tell, as I'm sure you all know. So definitely incorporate them in that process.
Yeah, you know, and when you're doing this, deciding on a story, really think: is this visual? And what is the goal of the film? What's the point of view of the film? What do you hope to achieve by making this film? These are good questions to ask off the top. We want people to learn more about a certain issue, or we want them to change a habit. So you have having a goal and a point of view, who the audience might be, and then again the style and how you might measure the outcome of the film in terms of if somebody saw the film, what would you like to happen? The other thing, yeah, and you want it to be a very visual story. It's really important that you're thinking always visual. That's what film is about. It's telling a story through pictures. To really be creative, you know, if you're doing an interview, think of the background. Make sure you're really creating interesting pictures, or getting different angles, or getting extra footage. So if somebody's talking about something, you might cut to what they might be talking about.
Yeah, that's called B-roll. So sometimes when you're interviewing someone, as I mentioned before, it can be a long talking head. And a great way to cut a scene is to have B-roll. So what they're talking about, keep that voiceover, keep your voice on top of it, but cut to a scene or an image or some other shot of the actual trash at the school, if we're going to go back to that example.
Yeah, and what we can, we can go on and talk about the technical in a little bit. And if it's a documentary, you can write a basic treatment.
This is one of my favorite quotations. We work with TDSB a lot, so we have some examples from them. So a grade 2 student said, "When I began the water cycle, I knew a little. Then I danced and I knew a lot." And I really love this example because you don't actually need to dance the water cycle to understand everything about it. It goes back to Bloom's taxonomy, getting creative in any way, getting the kids involved and physically into the process is so important. It helps them understand. So a great way to do this is through job roles, and now we're getting into what we call pre-production.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, not only are they learning about an issue, but they're also really learning how to work together, how to reach out to the community and bring the community in. Some of the job roles, we're going to move into the sort of stage 2. Once you have your idea, once you think about what kind of film you want to make, you're going to get into pre-production. That's basically setting things up and preparing to shoot your film. So you want to give everybody job roles. It depends on the size of group you're working with. Sometimes you might give one person multiple roles, or you might give one role to multiple students. But you also want to use people's best abilities. So looking at these jobs in pre-production, you know, you're going to research, you can do some writing, you want to arrange some interviews. That's something that all the students can participate in. And then you move to production. It's good to have a director who's calling the shots and explaining to the people on camera what they're going to do. Somebody who's going to operate the camera. I understand a lot of people are working with iPads. How many people actually have iPads to work with
in the classroom?
In the classroom.
Can we do another poll and let us know if you have iPads in the class?
Well, some people are working with cameras still, but we've noticed it's starting to switch over more to iPads. So we're focusing a lot with iPads.
That's great. Most of the students will already know how to use them, so that's very helpful.
Sometimes they're teaching you, let me tell you.
Oh, or Chromebooks. Okay, yeah, any kind of tablet is really helpful and convenient.
Yeah. So the cinematographer, sometimes it's also the director of photography. When you hear that expression DOP, that's the same thing, a director of photography, which is also the cinematographer. You have producer or multiple producers, people who kind of take care of the overall details. Assistant director is kind of an interesting thing. A lot of people don't understand what that role is, but an assistant director kind of keeps the show moving forward. They're there making sure that everybody's on set and, you know, helping the director get through their shoot. You know, they're kind of corralling everybody, so it's a very handy role, and making sure everything's lined up so the director can call action. Script supervisor, that's an interesting role. That's also known as continuity. They used to be two separate roles in a professional film, but basically that's the person who's making sure everybody's saying what's in the script and we don't miss a shot, because we have a list of the shots we're going to get. Everything is ticked off and we're making sure we're getting everything. And
if you have a smaller class, this could be something that the writer could also do. So if you have a smaller group, the writer can also be the script supervisor since they know what's on paper best.
Yeah, and then you can have people work with working on the set design. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to build anything, but somebody could say, well, let's drag that plant and put it behind the speaker, or somebody who just can take care of the props. because that helps having somebody understanding what the props are ahead of time, make a list. Sometimes there's little special effects. You can work with water or, you know, sometimes little homespun special effects people can create. There's costume. Sometimes you'll have costumes, and sometimes people will just be wearing their own clothes. One of the things that you should think about, though, is making sure that there's not too many big logos. So if you know you're going to be shooting, maybe tell the students try not to wear a big Nike t-shirt. It's not a huge deal, but it's something we try and shy away from. Somebody to help with the location is another task, also making sure that the location is clean when you leave it. Somebody to work the sound. Production manager is sort of like a producer, somebody to take care of the overall vision. There's on-screen roles, actors, interviewers, interviewees, hosts, and sometimes if you're dealing with animals, you're dealing with chicks, you might want somebody to just make sure they're taking care of the animals. In post-production, there's lots of different roles too. Somebody to think about the sound. Editor, sometimes the teachers will be doing some of the editing, but it's always great if you can be doing that with your students. Visual effects, we don't get into tons of visual effects, but sometimes there's a few options. We can look at that in the post section. There's music. You can look for free music, or, you know, if you have students that are a little bit older, maybe there might be some that might be experimenting with GarageBand.
And making their own. So GarageBand, just so everyone knows, is where you can make your own music. It's an Apple program. But we will, as I mentioned at the beginning, also have resources for royalty-free music in case you just want a music set underneath. Yeah. And you have maybe a younger class who just wants to drag and drop a music file onto the film.
Yeah, but it'll be a lot of fun, making sure that everybody has a role and a role that they're excited about. Some people are shy to be in front of camera. They'd like to be behind the scenes. You know, you've always got those bold kids that love to be in front of the camera. So there's so much options. You can give everybody a role they feel happy with. Again, once you assign roles to everybody, you do want to research, get your subjects if you're having interviews. And when you're researching and getting subjects with a documentary style, it's always good to have opposing points of view, of course. And then to prepare either a storyboard or a shot list ahead of time is very handy. There's a few examples of simple ways to do it. It's always good just to prepare ahead, otherwise you're not wandering around in the dark and forgetting things. So you could either do kind of a classic drawn storyboard, we're going to go get this type of image, and then we're going to get that type of shot.
Yeah, so a storyboard is essentially a visual board of your script story. So this is a classic version. Each box from left to right is each scene. So this one here would be scene 1, scene 2. Another version that we find teachers enjoy using, or maybe it's a little bit simpler if they have a younger class, is the storyboard chart. So where shot 1 is a wide shot of a house, audio, something to think about, always thinking about it in advance, is some birds chirping maybe. And in this scene, there are no props, and we definitely want to make note of all of that. So if we go back, here's that scene. Shot number 2 is a medium shot of the tree. This time the audio changes. So this is how detailed a film can get. Each shot has an entire list of its own audio and every prop. So if we want to compare those, there's your fake beehive with a little bee. There you go. And these are all props. And eventually when we get it to a close-up, maybe there's a bee costume for Alex. And
yeah, and we'll make sure all these types of resources are available for you. But it's good just, you know, even you can create your own ways, but just creating lists of what you intend to do before you do it so that you don't get confused on the day. And then you want to schedule it, which day you can speak with certain people, you know, how many days you want to shoot.
Sorry, this is another chart that got a little bit wonky in the format in the switch over, but we actually work a lot with a TDSB teacher, Patrick McCarthy, so he has a really great template of schedule of how long it'll take each film that we definitely encourage you to kind of...
So we're going to share that.
Yeah, we're definitely going to share that out.
Yeah.
But the moral of the story is it always takes longer than you think because of field trips and other classes. Definitely plan in advance, an hour or two here or there, maybe a couple of days a week.
Yeah, preparing is really handy, and then when you go to shoot, it's just so simple. Then you want to test your equipment ahead of time. You want to just practice with the camera and then practice with how you're going to record the sound before you actually go to shoot, just so that everybody has a handle on what they're doing. There's
just a quick note on equipment. This is a list of things that we usually use in this workshop, but it does not need to be this expensive. We have some classes and eco film clubs that just simply use the iPad. They use the microphone on the iPad. They don't have a mount or a tripod, and that's perfectly fine. We're just listing things that are options that are out there for you. You might even be able to rent them through your school or your school board. I know that TSB, Eco Schools and Arts departments have iMounts and iRigs for you to borrow as well.
Yeah, and we'll go a little bit more into the technical in the next section. So now you've got your development. You created an idea. You've got your script, or what you're going to shoot. Pre-production. You've prepared everything. You've practiced with your equipment. You've tested your equipment. You've assigned everybody jobs. You've planned out your shoot. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to jump into production. And this is always a lot of fun. Yeah, we're going to...
Production, okay. Right off the bat, just some basics of the iPad. These are some very skilled students in the Dominican Republic holding the iPad horizontally so that you don't get those black bars on either side. I'm sure you've seen those before.
Right, the aspect ratio, if you hold it up straight,
or portrait.
Yeah, if you hold it up portrait, you will have black bars on either side because just like a TV, it frames it in that landscape way.
That's right.
So just remember always to hold it landscape. Just a little simple little thing.
Make sure your finger's not covering the camera. That has happened. People have shot full scenes, and I guess they don't look at the screen when they're shooting, and their fingers in front. So little things to keep in mind because they do happen, especially when you're working with a large group of students.
And did we want to play a little video, Alessandra, and then go in to talk about some of the techniques for shooting?
Yep. So
we're going to put a link up for you. Show you this really nice little...
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Susan. Okay, so if you all want to click on that link, it's just a really basic video on different types of composition shots.
Yeah, it's 3 minutes, so you might as well just watch the whole piece.
Great. So welcome back. As some of you might have noticed, that video is actually part of the Planet in Focus playlist that I've created. So you can hang on to that link, and again, we'll send it out later. And as Susan mentioned, it'll be sent out tomorrow as well. But it's a very handy playlist of all sorts of films like that.
Yeah, and these are some of you can play some of these to your students as well. We were talking... when we were talking with some teachers before, we talked, another nice thing to do in terms of preparing to make a film is to watch some other short films that were successful, either professional short films or student-made short films. It's always kind of a good exercise to do with your class, and you can have discussions on those. So going into just some of the techniques of actually shooting, as you saw from that video, there's a few things to think about. I mean, it can be fairly simple. One of the first things we wanted to discuss was rule of thirds. You want to see that one next? Okay. So sizing. You want to get different types of shots. You can do, and this is something you can put into your filming plan ahead of time, and you can get creative while you're doing it. But you can go. Different shots are used for different things. So if you want to have an extreme wide shot, like I was pointing out here, is maybe an establishing shot. So say you're doing a film inside the school, but you might want to just get a shot outside the school off the top so that everybody can see, okay, the action is taking place inside the school. Or say we're going to go into a bicycle shop and interview somebody there, as in that other film. You could get an exterior shot of the bicycle shop. This really gives you the setting. So you might start off with a wide shot like that. There's different reasons you would use different shots. You might use a medium shot if you have a number of students in the shot together. So if a bunch of people are talking, a medium shot is a good choice. If you're going to be doing an interview, you might want to get a little closer into kind of a head and shoulders, kind of a little bit closer up.
This is called a medium close-up, or an MCU.
Yeah, medium close-up. If you want to get really close for something, the closer you get, the more personal the shot becomes, too. So if somebody's talking about something personal or emotional or acting something out, you might want to get a little bit closer up because that really does show the emotion on the face. You can get really close up and have some fun with an eye. Get it's good to experiment a little bit. You can get a shot from above, sometimes to create the feeling of something bigger than oneself. And then sometimes you want to go from below to create a larger-than-life subject. Sometimes you're having fun. You want to go kind of tilty and go Dutch, as they call it.
Yeah, Dutch angle shot, you can use it in a couple of different ways. So we see this a lot when the students create superhero movies. There's always that superhero shot from below, or you can be an evil villain. I'm sure you've noticed those shots from below. So yeah, there's just different ways to play around with shots. A lot of times we're always thinking about the script and what the students can say, but the camera says a lot too. So these are just examples of ways that you can add to the story visually.
So yeah, and then again, something that was talked about in that film is the rule of thirds. Now you want to find an interesting framing. You don't want everybody necessarily in the center, straight on. So it's kind of dull. But you do want not too far to the edge. So as you see in those bottom pictures, there's kind of those crosshairs. Somewhere in one of the corners is always good. Just offset it. You'll notice that when you're seeing people, when you see that on TV, often you find that somebody's not in the center. They're just off to the side, and your eye naturally goes to about a third down and a third over, either from the bottom or the top. So
that the screen is divided into 9 equal parts.
And then also you can use your backgrounds for you. Sometimes, people might shoot something up against a plain wall and not be thinking about it, but you can, use your angles around your setting to help create a visual story.
So this one up here that we're talking about now is called leading lines. So there are natural lines in this hallway that create action. So the point of focus actually becomes the doors at the back.
And that's just, just a really interesting place. If you had somebody walking up that hallway, that would be really...
Yeah, so this is just kind of a way to think about compositions that are pleasing to the eye, where our eyes naturally go to, which is why rule of thirds is so important. Our eyes naturally go to, they just naturally split up the frame like this, and they go to where these lines are. And they go to where the action is, and in this example up top in the leading lines, the action ends up being at the back because of the natural lines in the hallway.
Alrighty, and then there's some camera movement as well. You want to go to that first? Okay, yeah, some simple rules of lighting. You want your subjects generally to be well lit. Sometimes you don't want it to be so overlit that it seems kind of blown out. And if people are backlit, you might not see their faces. Now, sometimes there might be a way to use that artistically, but sometimes you just have to be careful to make sure that the light is on people's faces and not behind them if you really do want to see their faces.
It's a stylistic choice. Another type of shoot is a multicam shoot. So we see here there's an iPad on a eye mount here. There's also one here. It's different angles. One up here.
Yeah. So say you were shooting an interview and you had two iPads. You might have one camera on each subject, and then you might have a third camera, say, getting them both in a two-shot.
Yeah, we see that a lot in interview styles, definitely.
Yeah. So sometimes that can mix it up a little bit if you have a few different camera angles to play with and something to cut to. And again, you don't want too much because you know you're gonna not want to cut like crazy in the edit, so you want to keep it sort of simple, but you want to have some options so that you're not on the same shot for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, as we mentioned before, there's something called B-roll, and that's a second type of scene that you can cut to when there's a long shot. So here's an example of B-roll. It was a cleanup day at the school, and so there was an interview going on with one of the teachers, and there was a shot of some of the students in the background that they then used as a B-roll shot of some of the students cleaning up.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that is handy when you're shooting is you might not have a slate like this one, but sometimes it's really good to organize your footage in editing, to think ahead, to either hold up a piece of paper indicating what the shot is, so that when you start, you just shoot your first shot on the piece of paper, so that it's easy to find when you're editing. Another thing is when you're editing in iMovie, it comes up like thumbnail clips. So you really want your opening shot to help you indicate what it is you've just shot. So if you're moving the camera into a shot, it might not be helpful because what the shot is about isn't the first image. So you want to line up your first image and then start the camera there in a way that helps you know what it was you shot.
Yeah, it'll be easier to find when you're editing, especially if you're working with tablets, iPads, and the like. So definitely start off the scene, as Jordana said, not by moving the camera, but when you're ready and set, hold the iPad steady and then press record.
Mm-hmm. And then when you see them all as little thumbnails, you go, oh, that's the one with the two people talking, or that's the one we focused on the garbage can, or that's where we had the little chicks.
It'll make your life so much easier when you're editing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so, generally you want to hold your camera still, not too much camera movement, because I think, it can get a little chaotic. So mostly you want to have the camera still and the action moving in a classroom setting. But, once in a while you can break out of that. At pan, you can pan from one side to the other. That's the expression when you're just moving the camera across a scene.
Maybe you're following the main character.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You can zoom in. Sometimes that creates some interesting effect. Yeah, and then do we have something about the axis here? Okay, so I want to just talk a little bit about axis. Say you're shooting a scene and two people are talking. You really want to stay on one side of the action, because when you don't want to kind of go from one side to the other. So if you're doing an interview, have the interviewers in front of you, and then you really just stay, you just stay on one side of the action, whether you're giving one angle or the other. But
so as an example, if you want to look at this bottom left picture, there are no cameras behind the table. They're all on this 180 degree right here. When you flip to the other side of the table, people who are watching the film kind of lose track of where they're sitting at the table, per se. Mm-hmm. So there are 3 cameras set up. There's 1, 2, and 3, and they're all within this 180 degrees, not on the other side.
Right, that's what we're saying, yeah, because it can be.
And that's an important rule, just to keep in mind, especially with dramatic shoots.
Yeah, and then we also want to talk a little bit about sound. Now, you're not necessarily going to have the greatest sound equipment, and shooting with the iPad, sometimes you're really just troubleshooting or trying to work with the iPad the best you can. If you don't have an external microphone to the iPad, just have to be really conscious that if you're close to the iPad, it's going to be really loud, and then the people far away from the iPad are going to be really quiet. So just planning that into your shoot. There are a few microphones that one could access and plug into the iPad.
Yeah, there's iRig makes a pretty cheap microphone that just plugs into the jack in the iPad or any other tablet, and it automatically recognizes that there's a better microphone, and it automatically records the sound through that. But again, they're not necessary, but as Jordana mentioned, just keep in mind that if you are going to be interviewing, to ask both parties actually to just speak up a little bit. It'll help you in the long run.
Yeah, and if you are just recording on the iPad, just try and make it so that everybody plan it so that everybody is about the same distance from the iPad, so that it's not loud and quiet, and then you can always bring in the sound. You can pump it up a little bit when you're editing, or take it down. You do want to try and get somewhere quiet where there's not a lot of external noise. That's kind of, say you're in a cafeteria, you might want to have that busyness in some spots, but just be aware that all that extra noise is going to be in. So if you're actually going to have an interview with somebody, try and do that in a quiet spot.
I had a teacher in the workshop ask if the washroom was a good place to interview. And so I asked her to try it out. And there's a lot of echo in a washroom. There's a lot of tiles, and it's not the best sound. Really, a quiet office, something like that, where you're not going to hear kids in the hallway or reverb coming from tiles in the washroom. Think about sound.
Right, and then you can always do a voiceover as well, as Nadine is saying. Later on, you can record a voiceover in a quiet,
That's exactly right.
quiet
Yep.
spot. And sometimes you want those sounds to work for you. Like, it's great to hear the kids playing in the yard and all those beautiful sounds. So just try and make sound your friend and be conscious of that. Sometimes if you're not thinking about it, that's often where there's problems in the end.
In the YouTube playlist that I've created, there is also another work that's all about Foley art. And Foley is the art of actually creating your own sound effects. And it's also a fun job for the students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but I would encourage you to be creative, and sometimes the kids will come up with great ways to be visual. But you want to be telling a story with the pictures and finding innovative ways to create those pictures. And then planning ahead, again, going back to that, because we're going to move from production into post-production very soon. And shooting everything can be a lot of fun, but then you've got a lot of stuff in post-production to go through. So it's really good to plan it out so that you're not piled high with hours and hours of footage, which you won't have. But
Mike made a great point. Making original music is a great way. It's the best way to go if you have older students. So if you're working with kindergartners, we found that just getting some royalty-free music online, and we do have some resources for that. That's very helpful as well.
You can also do things like
Apple Loops and GarageBand is fairly easy, and I'm actually going to show you a little bit when we get into post-production of how you can use some simple loops.
Yeah, but you can also do things like, say, the kids wrote a song, and you just
definitely,
the kids sing the song, and maybe one of the teachers plays guitar, and you could all sing the song and record it.
Yeah,
and that could be a lot of fun too.
Exactly, royalty-free music, and you can use that as a background, and the kids can make their own lyrics. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's such a fun process all the way through.
Since we're on sound,
let's
just jump ahead a teeny bit, and I'm going to go back to editing.
Okay.
So we're going to go into. I have a really great clip. Thank you, Susan. So if you want to click on that link, there's a great clip that shows different types of music and how it can completely change the scene.
Yeah, and actually this is post-production, so I would say we have moved into post-production.
I don't know if we're the only ones getting that ad.
Oh. Yeah, that's not the sound. That was just an ad. Here it is.
Hey everyone, so if you wouldn't mind coming back, just hit the yes button on the poll and let us know when you're back.
Yeah, so I mean, that's another, you can always, if you haven't gotten all the way through the video, it's something you can always have a look at later, but it is really interesting how different music changes a film. Often when I make films, I will work with a composer, but I remember I shot a little film, it's a 2-minute piece, and all night me and the editors sat and we played different Apple loops behind the film, and every single piece of music turned it into a different song. It was really kind of a fun thing to do. So.
Yeah, I think it's a great exercise to do with your students as well.
Yeah, and did you want to talk about that editing exercise?
Sure. So I know most of you are working on the iPads. This is how we usually run the EcoFilm Lab. You probably already have a bit of experience in this, but if you do not, I'm just going to touch on the basics here. There are some videos in the playlist and that you can find all over YouTube that go further in depth on how to use the iPad and iMovie specifically. We also have a downloadable PDF that we created in partnership with TDSB, so that also has some curriculum connections in it, and that's on our website. That's a downloadable PDF on our website. So just some of the basics of the iPad. When you open up iMovie, this is an example of a shot I took from an airplane, and I recorded some narration on top. So when you first open it up, you'll see these options on the side. All will take you to all of your video clips. So I have some beautiful Dominican water, the sky, the beach. Somewhere in this timeline is an interview. However, because I didn't get it off the top, that thumbnail doesn't show me correctly. So that's a good note that Jordana mentioned beforehand. So here are the videos. And if you click on this tab over, you'll get some photos if you're using still shots. And as per your iPhones, as I'm sure some of you have, you can just save photos and they'll save to the camera roll on the photo section. Under audio, if we go back here, so in the audio section, here's where you can find some great Apple, what we call Apple Loop theme music. There's also some sound effects. These are all royalty-free, by the way, under Apple, so you're free to use those. Here's where you'll find your recording. So if you actually went through and clicked on recordings, you'll see any voiceovers that you've recorded. And what you can do with those is actually place them and drag and drop them. Everything's drag and drop, you know, with Apple. You drag and drop them onto your timeline, and then you can cut and paste from there. And alternatively, what you can do if you haven't pre-recorded anything, say in your voice notes app on the iPad, if you wanted to actually record it in iMovie, what you would do is click on this microphone on the left-hand side. And what that does is it saves some voice recordings into this file right here. So that's a great way to add narration, and it's really simple. You can do it in iMovie itself. If you wanted to edit the audio completely separately, sorry guys, I'm a quick speaker, so let me know if you want me to slow down or if you want me to clarify anything in the chat room section. So if you wanted to edit the audio down a little more specifically, what you would do is click this sound wave. And what that does is it would blow up this audio sound wave bar, and then you can go a little bit deeper and cut and paste a little bit finer. So as I'm sure many of you know, in the all section, all videos, you can just drag and drop clips onto your timeline and add transitions very, very simply. I'm sure most of your students already know how to do this. So this is just a quick refresher for you all.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think a lot of the teachers in classes, they get through the first few sections okay, and sometimes people, if they're just not experienced with the editing programs, they do end up having, they struggle through the editing process. If you are thinking to if you are thinking to create a film and submit a film and you just need a little bit more assistance, contact us, because we might be able to do a follow-up workshop just on editing, or we may be able to provide you access to a filmmaker that might be able to help you talk through some of it. So please don't be shy to get in touch with us directly, and you know, we'll support you through that process as best we can. And again, different iPads will have different versions of the software.
But you can update, yes, Jennifer. You should try updating and see what a difference that makes. It definitely will give you some added features for sure.
Yeah, it's basically you want to put your clips into a timeline. You want to be able to trim them. You want to be able to add maybe some transitions, a little crossfade. It can be pretty simple, but there's things, you know, you can add, you can have sound continue while the sound of a certain clip continue while you go to another clip visually. So there's a lot you can do with that. You can add the music, you can add voiceover. There's also, you know, you can have some fun with some sound effects. You can create them when you, yeah. Sometimes it is hard to.
So we just noticed Frank's comment.
Mike's
comment.
Mike's comment. Yes.
Yeah, I've heard that from some schools. I guess it depends on what if your iPads are locked a certain way, you have to log in. You have to find the login for your school's Apple.
Yeah, so everybody's got their own software.
Yeah, you can work with it. It's workable, but if you're really having a hard time, I would ask your school for their Apple ID so that you can log in and actually update. Yeah, you can work with it. Great.
Yeah, and then again, do feel free to touch base with us, and if you're having some issues, maybe we can find someone who can speak with you and talk you through it.
Yeah.
We're open to that.
Yeah.
But you can have fun with sound effects. You know, Foley is when you create your own sound effects. Like you should crunch an apple when somebody's doing that. You can create your own sounds, or there's some sound effects that are in the system as well. So play with those. Yeah, and credits. Create credits because you want to credit people that have been in the project and the students that have done the job and some of your guests.
The credits shouldn't be 5 minutes long.
Yeah, just quick.
Yeah, quick credits definitely. We talked earlier about different options for credits. That's a great space to have some animation and some movement. So get creative even at the very end.
Yeah, is there any other, let's check out your questions. Yeah, see, this is where it gets crazy, where everybody's trying to figure out the technology. But again, if you have a simple type of a shoot, you can usually pull something together.
And everyone's used to different systems. Definitely, it depends on your school, depends on what your students are used to. So this is all
yeah. And again, often sometimes this is where your students jump in and start teaching us because
you'd be really surprised.
They're growing up on the technology.
And just to jump back to some of the features real quick, if you ever are curious as to where a button is or what it does, just click this question mark up here, and you'll get some yellow pop-ups that will show you where to find the simple basics. If you were to record or download, some royalty-free music, you would find it either in a playlist if you've saved it in a playlist or in your songs that have downloaded to iTunes. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, but definitely when you're scheduling it out, do make sure that you have enough time for editing. Sometimes people may not
Takes longer than you think.
Yeah, so make sure you shoot something early enough so that you have some time to edit. There's always technical issues, even in the big films. I'm doing a film now. It took me 5 days to shoot and 4 months to edit. So that's a bigger project, of course, but always give a little pad for editing and uploading and all those little technical glitches.
And that's a really good note, Susan. Actually, we have a few schools that teachers transfer clips to each other and download final versions all through Google Drive. It's a really great system, and I know a lot of the school boards are using it as well. So that's a great note. Thank you.
Yeah, and then in terms of, is there something else we're going to do with music? Or? Yeah, no, let's just move on. Okay, so that's the 4 stages: the development, the pre-production, the production, and the post-production. So once you've finished your films, actually, sort of before we finish your films, we should talk a bit about releases quickly. You're going to want to get some releases. We can go ahead and pop back. You want to, before you even start, you're going to want to get some releases from your students. We'll have them all uploaded on the website. You want an on-camera, see on the right-hand side, there's an on-camera waiver and media release form. That's for you to collect from everybody who is going to be on camera. You can get the students' parents to sign those. If you can collect all those and then just submit one single release form, the one on the left, the project media release form, that you can sign off and just say you've collected all the forms, and that's good enough for us. So when you submit your project to us, you're going to do one project media release form. The details are all on the website. You're going to do the application, which is, that's the application. We'll have an application. It's a little bit different for different regions. Toronto is going to submit through one of our teachers, Patrick McCarthy, and then everybody else would submit directly to us, probably through the Google Doc, the Google.
Yeah, it'll be a system similar to Google Drive, or it might actually be Google Drive if that's what you guys prefer. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah, we'll post that in the next couple of weeks. But again, Toronto, if teachers, if you can submit by May 6th, York Region May 23rd, Ottawa and the balance of Ontario by June 10th. That will give us enough time to review the films and be able to filter them through to the various screening venue possibilities. And we encourage you to create community screenings in the classroom and in your communities. Again, we've got the media releases, and all films should be under 4 minutes, but they could be as short as 1 minute or even 30 seconds if you have a fun little idea. Yeah, it's just, again, it could be a more complicated film if you feel like your students are working with mediums, or it could be really a simplest PSA type of a film. We're really happy to see any kind of films. We think it's an ongoing process to be learning with the equipment, so I wouldn't feel that if you didn't think your film was hugely ambitious, don't be shy. We love them all. Do you have any questions for us before we sign off? We have a few more minutes left.
I have a quick question. This is Susan. So for people that are not in the areas where you're established, are you hoping to branch out and have you know, outside of, as Nadine just asked, outside the Toronto area? Like, I'm in Waterloo. I can imagine a lot of our teachers might be interested in this. Would you set up an area here that's a different contest, or would you just lump us in with one of the others?
Well, for this year, I mean, it depends on how many films we get. Again, we're trying to grow this program every year, and the more successful it is, the more success we have in getting funding for various areas and coming to those areas and doing workshops. But at this time, anybody that's outside those main regions, we're not necessarily going to set up screenings in your areas. That would be something that you could do within the school, but we definitely want to feature those films in different ways, one on our website, two at our film festival, and we're also talking about potentially sending films from all the students around to other schools. So that might be something we can do with all the films too. So if you're in Waterloo and you guys have been able to create a little film to submit, that might be something that students all across Canada will have access to view and screen in their schools.
Yeah. So it will definitely be online on our YouTube channel. But something that we also did last year was a Google Hangout across the country, actually. So that was a lot of fun. We can definitely organize something across the province where each classroom sets up their own little Skype session, and we can all see each other and watch each. We'll have like a screening room. We watch each other's films, and then we all have a discussion. Students ask each other questions. It was a lot of fun last year, so that's something that we can talk about doing this year potentially.
Yeah, we had students from Vancouver, from Prince Edward Island, from Ottawa, Toronto, and New Brunswick all on the same conversation, watching each other's films together.
It was a lot of fun.
So it's something we can do again this year. I would say, though, if you're going to do that, still everybody should have their films in by June 10th. That gives us a little bit of time.
Before the end of the school year to organize a screening.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as Jennifer's questions, our topics, we like to stay fairly broad. It all depends. It's very regional. It ends up being very local. So we don't want to put, too much criteria on it, but
it's environmental.
Environmental in any way, and that also includes social issues, definitely.
Mm-hmm. You can do as one video, or you could do multiple videos. Sometimes we've had multiple videos from one class.
Yep.
Where everybody can be working on the same film. We're very open.
And all of the details on how to submit are on our website. But if it's easier for you guys, like I mentioned, we could also do something through Google Drive. Right now we use WeTransfer, where you just simply email it to us, and I'll keep track of all of that. But if it's easier, we might set up a Google Drive. So you let us know. That's how to submit.
I hope you found this workshop helpful. Does anybody want to weigh in if they felt that this was useful, or that they were able to learn something that was something tangible they could take with their students?
We also just want to remind everyone that good art is not what it looks like, but what it does. And so don't be intimidated. My students are very excited. We're really excited. The quality of films is always pleasantly surprising, for sure.
Oh my goodness! And all the films, just seeing the spirit of the kids and what they're doing and what they're trying to communicate. It's just so lovely and really exciting to us to see them just creating.
Yeah.
Some of them are diamonds in the rough.
So don't be intimidated. Like we said, it can be a 30-second PSA. It doesn't really matter as long as they're having fun and learning from it and learning about the environment. That's what we want to do. We want to inspire change and create a new world for the next generation of change makers. So definitely keep that in mind with your classes, and please let us know if you have any questions. Email us at ecofilm@planetandfocus.org if you have any questions at all, or visit our website, planetandfocus.org. If you don't feel like you have time to create a film this school year, come out next school year, this fall, to our 17th annual Planet and Focus Environmental Film Festival. We have elementary and high school screenings from Monday to Friday. That's October 19th to the 23rd, I want to say.
Yes, it's the 20th.
It's October 27th to the 21st. So that whole week we have school sessions.
Yeah, during the Monday to Friday. We will, it'll all be up on our website. And again, we're sending films out to schools in various regions that we have funding for. And they can also be accessed if you're not from a certain region for a fee. That's all on our website.
Yeah, check out planetandfocus.org/green-school-tour for a free in-school film festival before June 2016. So you have to register in the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys so much. It's been such a blast, and we hope to do another webinar soon.
Okay, I'm just going to step in here before everybody goes and just first of all say a thank you to the two of you for a really informative session. That was so great. I love the videos, great resources, and you're both so enthusiastic and obviously have done a lot of this and care very much about this. I'm sure your sessions with students are amazing. So thank you very much. I do a lot of iPad work with teachers, and we do movie making, and I have done tons of iMovie sessions with teachers over the years, and I'll certainly borrow many of your ideas. So thank you very much. It was a really valuable session. And for those of you that were participating, thank you for coming tonight and for staying throughout the whole session. Here it is 9 o'clock, and our group is still here. So thank you very much for that. On the slide that you're looking at right now, there are a couple of really important things. This is a link to the feedback survey, and I've just added a little note here. when you complete the survey, you have 48 hours after completing the survey to print out a certificate. And our office has been getting some requests from people who didn't do it in time. So if that's something that you're still collecting as paper certificates, make sure you do that. And we really appreciate you doing the surveys, the feedback surveys, because it helps to drive our planning for next year, which will be starting shortly. And it also helps to drive funding for OTF, for this wonderful OTF Connects program that we have. So thank you in advance for doing that. This link will take you to other future OTF Connect sessions, and I'm actually going to put up a link as well to that in the chat area to let you know some of the upcoming. Here I'm talking and doing it at the same time, and I start to blubber my words. There's some links to both the feedback. We mentioned that this is being recorded. I'll be stopping the recording shortly. And the recording, as well as a link to all of the resources. And I'll say to Jordana and Alessandra, you've mentioned a couple of things that have not yet been shared. For example, the YouTube channel. If you would like to share those with either me or with Amy, actually share them with me. I will make sure that they get included in the resource link. And then, of course, this is the calendar for OTF for future sessions. Next week we have 3 sessions on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So these are the 3, but we have a full schedule right up until the end of May with great sessions, wonderful sessions. Everything that I've attended has been amazing. And I'll mention one more thing, that there is a new subsidy for any teachers who are taking AQ courses in math and technology with a subsidy of up to $450. So do look at the OTF website for that. So with that, I'm going to say thank you once again to everyone, and I'm going to stop the recording.